Hey, what's up everybody? Tarafdar back with a brand new video. Today I'm still at the park just walking about. Beautiful sunset here, and I wanted to shoot up this quick video. It's been a while since we last communicated with one another. And of course, I've been busy, obviously with the A-team and doing some of the things that I needed to do to practically put myself in a position to be able to assess my team members and of course help you guys out along the way, educate you on some of the financial moves that I've made, as well as some of the structural moves that I made as a team. So with all that said, I wanted to take my time today to really conversate and have a one-on-one with you on some of the major changes that are happening all across the credit repair space, as well as the additional spaces such as business and the climate within business. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss potentially, some of the structures that I want you really to pay attention to when it comes to, these type of situations. So the first thing we'll talk about is, credit repair on its own. Like as you guys are fixing your credit, as you're trying to get that taken care of, what are some of the things that you're noticing right now as individuals that are essentially going through challenges, right? So a lot of us are trying to take off, late payments, for instance. A lot of us are trying to tackle off the whole COVID-19 payment deferment plans. Some of you guys are there already. You've been trying to call your banks because you're seeing these late payments in your credit reports, but you're not being able to tackle them out of the situation. So what happens is you're in a situation right now that you're kind of stuck in between, in the middle. So we're going to give you guys a little bit of guidance on preliminary steps that you can take to ensure that those late payments are not necessarily adversely affecting your credit. And if so, then what are some of the steps that you need to take to ensure that you can actually get rid of that? So the first thing you really need to do is document your journey. If you're having a phone conversation with your financial institution, have a conversation that would be, number one, recorded from your side as well. And of course, automatically it records on their side, but it's just not enough to have, their side of the recording, because to have access to their recordings, you'll have to get a subpoena, number one. And it's going to take you months on end with the court to actually successfully execute a subpoena, to which point you'll have to have that negative remark stick on your credit report for a very long time. And obviously that's not what we're trying to fix your credit, right? We want to get that adjusted right away so that you can actually go out and tap into the financial resources that you need for whatever specific reason, whether it be for funding on a personal level, whether it be for real estate investing, for getting a mortgage to get into a property that you've been, looking forward to, and unfortunately aren't able to do so because of certain situations. I think that ideally this is the time that you got to pay attention to your personal credit, essentially, right? That's the bottom line of all this. Like I said, you have to document yourself. So the first step obviously is have a conversation logged between yourself and the financial institution that you're dealing with. And, that has to be very clear, right? The information has to be clear in the sense that, hey, I spoke to my bank and they basically agreed that there will be a little bit of deferment. And within that process, you have some sort of agreement with the financial institution that the payments are not going to be coming off as late payment status on your credit reports, for instance, for the next, 2 to 3 months, or whatever the case is, and whatever specific situation you guys organized for yourselves. In those instances, you should have something concrete from yourself as well as the financial institution, whether in writing or a confirmation vis-a-vis telephone, which you can use with the credit bureaus and essentially, log that in. And I think one of the biggest things that people forget is when they're asking for deferments with payment plans and, of course, working with their creditors, they forget about the credit reporting aspect of the situation. And the reason I say that is because obviously they're getting deferments and they're getting those breaks. And obviously it's not hurting your ability with the credit card company because you're not seeing those fees or whatever the situation. But on a credit reporting standpoint, obviously you're kind of stuck now because you're seeing those negative remarks. What do you do in those situations, right? So I always tell people the first recourse you should absolutely take is you should contact the creditors as you're working out the deferment plan and let's say the forbearance situation with the student loans, et cetera, ensure that the company that is actually giving you that grace period or some break, ensure that you communicate with them in reference to the personal credit aspect of it. And here's the why. Number one, a lot of these creditors, they just have to put that note into the system, and the credit reporting compliance department that actually does the reporting on a batch level, which is thousands of customers at the same time, will pick up that data, right? When they pick up that data, it'll help you keep that that note and comment, which in turn will give you that extra leeway that you need to successfully execute, a deferred program, to be able to successfully execute a situation where you're getting yourself a break. So that's the first step, right? So communicate with your creditors. Outside of just accepting a program that they'll give you to forgive your payments for the next 2 to 3 months, you need to be very vocal about the fact that, hey, I don't want my credit being affected because of these situations. And if so, like, what can we do about it so that it doesn't negatively affect me? Because I'm trying to preserve my credit, the integrity of my credit profile. That's number one, okay? So that's the situation with payment programs and late payments. Now, a lot of people have been communicating with me and reached out to me in reference to, a couple of things. Number one, hey, Ali, I have a lot of late payments on my credit reports. What do I do about them? And there's two things we have to keep in mind. First, how old are these late payments? The reason I say that is because if you're actually going through a process where you have late payments, and you have quite a bit of that, you need to look into that and say, well, what is the date of first delinquency? And this is one specific date that I really want you guys to note down. And the reason I say that is because these late payments could have been 7 to 8 years ago, sometimes 6, right? And what happens is most creditors, unfortunately, don't have that kind of log or detail to kind of put things in perspective, to look into that information and confirm it vis-a-vis the credit reporting agency. So that means you kind of have an advantage there. So the older the late payment, the easier it is to challenge it. However, you have to be compliant when doing so. So what I mean by that is you have to figure out what are some of the things that you can notice on that late payment, specifically the date of first delinquency, which is how far back was the first late payment logged. And if that's the case, if you look at it as a 24-month plus period, obviously most of that is not considered into credit reporting, but that history is carried over, ultimately comprising your score. But one of the best parts about that is you can easily challenge that late payment by requesting accounting terms. And this is one thing I want you guys to pay attention to. Accounting terms essentially means the creditor that is posting that information and stating that they are late, what specific documentation or evidence do they have, specifically with a balance during the time that it was late, that doesn't necessarily compromise the accounting of it, which means that they didn't add additional fees, they didn't add additional charges, causing the actual account to go late, where you would have had respect to the minimum payment anyways, right? So that's one way that you can actually do this. And I encourage you to go and explore that, because that can actually be helpful for you. So as we move forward, there's a lot of more other things that I want you guys to concentrate on. So number one, we talked about late payment. We talked about if you're getting some sort of forgiveness or if you're getting a break, what are some of the things that you absolutely need to do when you communicate with your creditors as they're giving you this break, and be specific about the credit reporting side of it, because a lot of people don't necessarily think about that. So they're essentially going out there and they're doing their thing, and they're just getting these programs and they're getting these late payment adjustments. On a financial perspective, obviously you're not getting charged fees or all these type of extra things, but as you continue on and you're actually handling the credit reporting side of it, you're actually getting hit. You're getting hit pretty hard, because payment history is 35% of your score, so you absolutely need to concentrate on that. Second thing we talked about is to challenge late payments. The older they are, the easier it is, because you can question the integrity of the account, the balances during the time, and up-to-date standards and information. I was reading a forum on Facebook, actually, a group within Facebook that people were late. And the representative of that client was a credit repair specialist. They challenged those late payments like a regular dispute. The creditor reached out to the customer, and they told them, we're going to have to close all the 3 credit cards or accounts that you have with us. And the mere reason is because you're challenging the account. So you have to give us a statement that you are not, so we can keep these accounts open. Now that is a trick, right? And that's a trick because the customer will obviously be obliged to do so, which ultimately means that they can never challenge that late payment ever again until that time where, if the account were to go into a negative status or charge off, et cetera, they'd have to wait the respective 7-year mark to get rid of that. That's a very long time to wait. So when you're challenging late payments, you have to know what you're asking for. You have to be careful, especially if it's an open account. And you have to be looking forward to some of the structural integrity of the account, how it's reported, what are some of the missing components. Is there certain things that you can do to kind of get some clarity in reference to that? Because at the end of the day, that's where most of the information is going to be, right? So I want you guys to really pay attention to the information that I shared with you today. And more importantly, If you haven't done so yet, if you're new to this channel, I'd encourage you to subscribe and turn the notifications on to all. So every time there's videos like these, you guys will be first to be notified. As you can tell, it's been over a week here in my last video, and there's a reason why. It's because I got something really powerful coming up that's going to give you the entire infrastructure and how to clean up your credit, much more than what you've learned so far on my channel. I want to really take my time to do this properly, because with it I'm going to give you guys a mini course that you can access, very, very affordable. And with that, you'll have all the resources, tools, and templates that are needed to execute a successful credit repair campaign for yourselves, or perhaps those that you feel would benefit from this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Ali Tarafdar, your guide and mentor. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.